On July 23rd, we are hosting quite an event at the Bell House in Brooklyn, and you can get your tickets now. Eliza and I will be joined on stage by some of the food world's most interesting figures, including Haley Catalano and Chuck Cruz, and the one and only Padma Lakshmi. We will talk about summer cooking and some of the big topics of the day. The event will also feature a live taping of Bon Appetit's Bake Club with Jesse Shepchek and Shilpa Uskokovic. That's Haley, Chuck, Shilpa, Jesse, and Padma, all appearing on the Bell House stage with Eliza and I. July 23rd is the date. Get your tickets at the Bell House website or the link in our show notes. I hope to see you there.
That restaurant was really servicing like me and my homies, like Maxwell Osborne, you know, like Kenzo Digital was up in there all the time. Like a lot of just like downtown New York artists and weirdos. But I think the food gatekeepers were grappling with what it meant to the food scene and chefs, and it got struck down.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Eddie Huang hardly needs an introduction. But here's a shot. Eddie is a gifted writer, rap encyclopedia, film director, podcast host, best-selling author, and a pretty nice chef too. I've known Eddie since his days coming up in New York City in the 2000s, running the iconic Bauhaus and shaking up the food writing world in the process. Today, Eddie's back living in New York after spending years in California, and we get into his new restaurant project, Gazebo, which is running as a monthly pop-up series. We also talk about New York City dining culture then and now, and Eddie takes the taste check. What a legendary conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Eddie Huang, welcome. This is Taste.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
It's great to see you, man.
Yeah.
It's a long time coming.
Yeah, no, you were one of the first customers of Bauhaus, like on Rivington. I remember, like.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you've been really pounding the pavement, like following food for a while.
Thanks,
so
man.
When the PR request came through, I was like, hey, I fuck with Matt.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of your work, not just your cooking at Bauhaus, Chaillet, and what you're doing now at Gazebo, but you as a writer. I mean, I've read a lot of your work, and it's just, we talk to a lot of writers here, and you're one of our peers, if you like it or not.
Yeah.
I just respect that.
Yeah, no, I'm a food writer, you know, like I write about
You
food.
sure as hell are, man. You sure, and we'll talk about cookbooks because you haven't done one yet.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just go into it right now. Why no cookbook? Because I feel like you've written so many, screenwriter, you've written these incredible memoirs, 2 of them, which I've read. And I thought your second one in China was a great book.
Thanks, man.
Love that. But why no cookbook?
Yeah, I actually have like a whole recipe document with, I think it has like 600 recipes in it.
Yeah.
That it's just a Google Doc I've been running. But I think the reason why I haven't done a cookbook is because when I came out as a chef, I really wanted to be a writer-director. Like my interest was always in film because I grew up in a restaurant. And I think I underappreciated the ability to tell stories through a restaurant. Like I understood it and I did it and I'm doing it again now and I enjoy it. But I think because I grew up in a restaurant, because like, honestly, like my parents the whole time were just giving me shit. Like, you're just doing the same thing. You should do something better, yada, yada, yada. I was like, if I write a cookbook and if I really embrace being a chef, I think it's going to be tough for people to see me as a writer-director. And even, when I was about to get the green light for Boogie, there were people at the studio, producers that were like, how invested in this are you? Like, Are you going to go shoot a season of Huang's World? Or are you going to focus on this? And like, that was a big reason why, I didn't work it out with Vice on Huang's World. They had budget issues at Vice. They offered at one point to do like a domestic version of Huang's World. I was kind of a cunt and I was just like, I mean, it wouldn't be the world then, would it? And we like amicably was just like, I'm going to focus on making this movie. And so there were a lot of things I stopped doing. I stopped doing like private chefing gigs and people, if they're going to invest like millions of dollars in you to like make a feature film, they want to know that that is your focus. But as like Hollywood is crumbling and the ability to tell stories through that medium is in flux, I've really had to look at myself in the mirror and art and communication in the mirror, and I was like, man, I really just miss being able to cook something
Yeah.
and then see somebody's face as they eat it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was kind of the beauty of Bauhaus, was it was literally a counter. And you would come in, anybody would come in, I would just make the bow, and 30 seconds later, you just hear people going, oof, oh, you know, and like wiping their faces.
And just like, this shit is different. This is so, it's like American fast food, but with this vocabulary from China. It was such a refreshing, like back in 2009, is that right?
Yeah, 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
It's, you got to be given credit.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It was, I think it's a very simple idea, which was to like cook food in the most authentic way to like a Taiwanese night market, Chinese culture.
Yeah.
You know, hard to separate the two with the bao. But so
yeah, for sure, and we could play that.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't want to get into it.
Yeah,
but you know,
we could.
No,
we'll get some downloads.
We're good.
We'll get some more downloads for the show.
Probably will, but you know,
let's stick with.
Yeah, no, like I mean, my views are like pretty obvious. Like this is the flag of Sun Yat-sen. You know what I mean? And you know, I would say that yeah, Bauhaus as an idea was simply like, I can cook food authentic to the way I experience it in Taiwanese night markets, but we can be on Rivington Street in the Lower East Side, across from A-Life, across from the basketball court, listening to the music, wearing the clothes, being the people that we are in America. It's just like a super simple idea. It was like, we don't need to fuse, we don't need to like compromise, we don't need to assimilate or explain. It's just like, yo, we cook and fire Taiwanese food, and it's like we work in a store selling T-shirts, skateboards. That's it.
Yeah. And you know, kind of like following that wave, you got like Mission Chinese.
Yeah.
Right. You've got like a lot of folks who kind of were able to, you know, and take that ethic and then leverage it using a crappy word. But like, what I want to ask you about is Xiaoye.
Yeah.
Xiaoye. I feel like I reviewed it and we talked about that review. I didn't know shit about any like Korean food at that time. And I just didn't understand it. And I want to give you credit and just talk about it, because I think you were really ahead of the time with that restaurant, because what you're doing is cooking regional Chinese, you were cooking Taiwanese, you were cooking all over Asia, but you were doing it with vibes in mind. And this is like before vibes is even a term in a lexicon. And at that time, like New York, like wasn't getting Asian food. They weren't getting it. They weren't getting it as a cultural moment. And you really were a pioneer to like usher in the Uncle Boone's of the world and these places that became like iconic restaurants. The restaurant did not work out.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I mean, the vibe was too strong.
The vibe was too strong. I mean, but the point of view was too strong. And like, I think if that opens now and you're like, you know, the same age, you're young, and you're on like New York Magazine's like top 2 or 3. But at the time, like Sifton didn't quite get it. I didn't quite get it as a critic.
Yeah.
And I'm admitting my mistake.
But it's all cool. Like the thing is at the time, I think everyone was so focused on what was on the plate.
Yeah, I know.
And I was really focused on like what shoes people were wearing. And like, you know, I was into fashion. I was into the Lower East Side more than anything.
Yeah.
I was into downtown New York. And that restaurant was really servicing like me and my homies, like Maxwell Osborne, you know, like Kenzo Digital was up in there all the time. Like a lot of just like downtown New York artists and weirdos were like popping in, and we were enjoying it. But I think the food, like gatekeepers, you know, like critics, like Sam Sifton, were grappling with what I was doing downtown, what it meant to the food scene and chefs, and it got struck down, you know? And I think if a critic came out today and reprimanded a chef for being on their phone in the kitchen, it'd be like laughable.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was kind of like what Sam really stuck me with. And in the review, like I've gone back to read it every few years. Just like
great.
It's like
it's fuel.
The food is fire. You know, like he's like, the Singaporean person I brought with me to eat was like, this is the best Hainan chicken I've eaten in 16 years. There was like really actually like kind review of food. But I've like stayed friends with Sam.
Yeah.
And even like 3 weeks ago, because it's the first time I've cooked for someone like in a publication, like a writer who criticizes or reviews food, was like Tammy from Grub Street.
Yeah.
And I remember she came and she was telling the people at the flower shop, like, yo, I need to like talk to Eddie. Like, when is Eddie going to come sit down and talk? And they were like, he's cooking. you know? And so I would make a dish and come over, make a dish and
Yeah.
come over. And I think she was like, yo, why isn't Eddie sitting down to talk to me?
Yeah.
Because I got to interview him for this article. And I was like, I've been burned by Sam already. Like, I'm not sitting in the dining room. Like,
Yeah.
if you come to Gazebo now, like, I come out when the desserts come out. I do not hang out in the dining room because I've been killed once for it before.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah, we had Tammy in actually a few days after she visited, and we were talking off mic about Gazebo, and she mentioned that she was just like sitting there, and her expectation was to interview you. But clearly, you made the right choice because you're focusing on the cuisine, and we'll talk about your June menu and your July menu. But Eddie, I mean, this is like you're back in New York cooking at Gazebo. And from Tammy's piece and talking to her, your wife comes from a family of olive oil. And I was thinking like Bertolli billions.
No. I
was thinking Bertolli billions, but it's actually a small production. But olive oil is part of what you're cooking with now, and this vocabulary that blends Mediterranean, Taiwanese, super fresh. How did you come to that?
Yeah, so my wife, her family owns like a plot of land that produces some of the best olive oil in Greece. But the relationship between that field, the family, and the government is like very complicated. So they don't export and ship or sell outside of Greece. All of their oil is spoken for every single season, every single harvest within the country. And it's sold to local places and somebody runs the field. But everyone in the family gets like a huge 5-gallon drum of it each harvest. So the first year I was married to my wife, it just showed up, just a giant drum, and it was like dripping olive oil. I remember bringing it in off the sidewalk, and I was like, yo, babe, what is this? It looks like it's from Greece. She's like, oh, that's like our allocation from the harvest. And
They send you the full 5 gallons.
the full 5 gallons.
Damn.
And like dripping everywhere. Like I immediately got it into mason jars, put them in like
Wow.
cool, dark areas of the house.
Yeah.
And I started to use it, and I was like, yo, this is the best olive oil I've tasted ever. Point blank, period. Like, I had great olive oil in Sicily.
Yeah.
I had some great stuff when I went to Istanbul. But like, the Greek olive oil is, to me, just like unstoppable. And I started to cook with it, mainly with like salads and cold dishes and things like that. And then I just started to get freaky. I started to do ceviche and like brush a little olive oil on the bottom. I was like, oh, that was nice. That was like, that gave it a little earthiness that wasn't usually there. I started to do stir fries at medium heat.
See, that's the key. Like you were able to dial a stir fry down to cook with the olive oil.
Yeah.
That's the talent right there. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
No, it's hard
man.
to do.
And like, to me, cooking is just the application of heat or not applying heat to certain ingredients. That's it. And so I think when you look at an ingredient, you got to say to yourself, all right, what application of heat serves this item the best? And I started to look at like Chinese pork stir fries, and I said to myself, well, I really like the char on like an Iberian pork secreto, the meat like by the rib. I was like, what if I first charred up the pork? Then I don't need a high heat stir fry to like brown that pork. I can put it on the grill, cut it up, and then stir fry it at a very low to medium heat with the aromatics, deliver it like a cured tofu and pork stir fry with the olive oil, and it was next level. It was a revelation.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of the greatest innovations of cooking in this generation has been sous vide, right? You're just messing with temperature. You're, instead of cooking a steak at a high temp, you're like, hey, maybe if I cook the steak at a low temp, then finish it at a high temp, boom. I did the opposite. I'm cooking meat at a high temp, finishing it in a low temp in olive oil, and now olive oil has another use.
Because it's not degraded. You're getting the spice and the pepper of this like great olive oil, right?
Yeah.
But then in the beef, like is the meat, does it have a flavor profile from Taiwan in it? Does it have like a Taiwanese flavor?
Oh, it tastes like Taiwanese food, but in a luscious
Very cool.
olive oil. It's just like, it's like, usually, a lot of people in Chinese restaurants are like Taiwanese street food. It's You're using soybean oil, you're using
neutral oils that don't really have a flavor.
Oil, whatever. It's like the leather in a bootleg bag on Canal Street. Like what I'm doing with this olive oil is like, I put it in Loewe leather.
I like to call.
Yeah, it's the same ingredients, but you're just putting it in better leather.
No, I think like diners. This leads to my question. Just in you're operating at 2009, 2010, and now you're operating 15 years later. I mean, what are you seeing about the New York City diner, the change? I mean, I observe that there's more money and just more ambition for a diner. That's my take, but I'd love to get yours.
Yeah, for me, I do think there's been more attention paid to vibe, probably since like 2018, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think people are much more concerned about like the music and things like that. Like when we started Bauhaus, people thought it was insane that we were just playing mixtapes and rap music like in the dining room. Now it's everywhere. Like I don't want to hear rap music when I go to a
shit's at CVS
now.
Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for us at Gazebo, it's like, we've adopted like an Italian disco kind of like synth pop format. Italian disco, I think, had a renaissance 2018, 2019 as well. I think you kind of want to like let the dance floor have the vibe and then let it trickle down into a dining room. So I chose Italian disco because I'm like, it's had its moment on the dance floor. I think the dance floor is at a higher BPM now.
Yeah.
And I think Italian disco is fit for like another era in the dining room.
Yeah, it's ready for its vibes moment. Let's go back to the Gazebo menu. You're doing monthly menus, which is terrific. You can smash Resi and hit the Resi button to get your bookings for July. But in June, you were cooking a lot of like the Eddie hits, like Lion's Head meatballs and red cooked pork. And then you wrote on your terrific Substack, Canal Street Dreams, about the July ambitions. And I was like, man, this is sounding really good. You're like more seafood, less stews, more vinegar. How are you going to evolve every month and talk about this July menu? I think it sounds really cool, man.
Thank you. Like some of the best eating experiences I've ever had are in Jamaica in the summer. Like I love going to Jamaica in the summer and just, it's just a lot of vinegar. It's a lot of grilled seafood. That's a big inspiration. Yeah. Obviously, like living in LA for a few years, aguachile, things like that.
Yeah.
Visiting Javier Huang in Peru, getting to like learn how to make leche de tigre from him.
Yeah.
That's a big inspiration. And then I think New York is just like in a Spanish renaissance. Like Chef Nick from Servos, that group is just on smash. Like I'm at Eel Bar intentionally and accidentally probably every week.
What are you ordering?
You got to get the fried mussels there.
Yeah.
Fried mussels is always phenomenal there. They do it in the shell. They are really aggressive. They change the menu, it seems, every 5 weeks. Yeah. It's really, really impressive. On this current menu, the black sea bass, fried black sea bass with just like a wipe of mayonnaise is excellent. On a previous menu, there was a rabbit bomba rice with some shellfish in there. Yeah. The way they're cooking is just extremely smart. And in my upcoming essay on places, I talk about the expediter there and like why he's like my hero.
Yeah.
And
give us a little preview. When you talk about Expo and that what gives you what allows you to offer praise and shout out an Expo position?
So expediter is kind of like my favorite position to look at a restaurant from during service, right? And you can see the tenor and pace. Like the expediter is really like the composer of the symphony, and he's setting the tone for the kitchen and the restaurant. He's the interstitial between like kitchen and servers. This guy, every time a ticket came in, he was outlining like what he wanted to do. You could see in black marker his plan. He's like, all right, I'm putting a box around this, but I'm firing this and I'm firing that and I'm saving this. And he was just like playing Tetris in a very cool way. And I was sitting there at a table directly caddy corner, so I could see everything he was doing. And when he called out the dishes that he wanted fired, the cooks just immediately turned 1 or 2 movements. Within 3 minutes, every dish was in front of him. And as soon as the order was ready, he just put his hand up in the air and he goes, hands. And I was like, damn, this is like, it's borderline condescending to the servers and waitstaff, but I love it. I love it.
They're in their contract with each other.
Yeah.
They're a team.
Because
right?
my thing is, the kitchen should never be ahead of the wait staff.
Yeah.
I really think, and I believe in hot food. I believe in serving food at the temperature it was intended to be
As the
served
chef,
at.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I love that this dude was just aggressively like, hands.
Give me, I'm giving you this dish, my guy.
Yeah.
Back to my original
But
question.
I just want to say the servers and waitstaff at Eel Bar are phenomenal.
Yeah.
They would come running. And like no one had issues with it. I think everyone at that restaurant has bought into serving food at the correct temperature.
That's cool. That's cool. And
Yeah.
and respect to those guys over at Eel Bar. Back to my original question, though, about the 2010 versus 2025. I know vibes are big, but what about just like the diner? You're cooking for Gen Z now, and that's a whole different diner than 15 years ago in New York. What do you? I just love your insight into New Yorkers and how they're dining out.
You know, I'll tell you, this is my theory. Like I said, how like music should trickle down from the dance floor into the restaurant. Like I think when a restaurant is trying to keep up with the club or the rave or the dance floor, incorrect, right?
Yeah.
I have no issue. Like Gen Z, I find incredible. Like
Me too.
I'm just as a mid-millennial observer, I'm just like, go off, do your
Yes.
thing, you know? Like
Cosign.
yeah. I love what's happening around like Alphabet City, Tompkins Square Park. Like I walk into This Is Bowl and I'm like, this is a Gen Z salad spot.
Yeah.
Fuck with it. But I'm not a poser. You know, like I'm not from Gen Z. I think I understand it, but I'm not presumptuous enough to be like, this restaurant's for Gen Z.
No, I know.
I think the restaurant owner, like, you got to just know who you are. And I think some restaurants, let's say Emilio Bellatos.
Thank you for shouting.
They represent a generation way older, right? Like a post-war generation in a way. But I think it's important to represent the generation you're from and you understand, because then Gen Z or whatever comes after Gen Z, Gen Alpha, can come to your restaurant and be like, oh, this is what you believed in.
Mm-hmm.
These were your values. And, you know, I think that's my responsibility. I think if I'm chasing Gen Z and hiring young creative directors and just being a thirsty old dude, it's like that whack dude that was in the club when we were young. Like, I hated that guy. So I'm kind of like, I believe that Gen Z will come find what I'm doing and what other people are doing, but then they'll also have their chefs and their restaurants. And, you know, like, I love seeing Ha's Snack Bar.
Yeah.
Right? Like, great restaurant. I haven't gotten to eat there because it's too busy.
Yeah, it's tough res, man.
You know, like, Anthony will offer me like 2 at 10 p.m. I'm like, dog, I got a kid. Like,
You're a kid.
I'm cooked at 10 p.m., man.
Yeah.
You know, but like, there are a lot of restaurants that I think are for Gen Z that embrace those things. Like, I think if I told you what I see as the tenets of a Gen Z restaurant, it would sound condescending. So I'm refrain from doing it.
We're not going there.
But we know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you know what it is.
Yeah, we know what it is. And I just such a smart take about the idea of like staying in your lane, cooking with point of view, and just like not trying to like thirst towards an audience. That's the recipe for a New York City restaurant to succeed.
Yeah.
That.
I stand my ground. Like, I still cook in NBA jeans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not ironically, like, I own those jeans. So it's like, you want to see an ancient hip hop man cooking NBA jeans, like, come through.
I love your style. You got the best. And as an aside, who's the Knicks coach?
Man, I hope it's Mike Malone.
That would be wonderful. Man,
I hope, but
please.
They're like talking to the assistant of the Timberwolves. I feel like right now the Knicks is like the hot girl at the party that everybody is like intentionally curving, because it's like, oh, I get to curve a hot girl. And I just hope the Knicks remember they're the hot girl at the party.
Yeah.
Everyone else in the Eastern Conference is dead.
Well, Halliburton going down is a big thing.
Yeah, bro, the Pacers are cooked. The Celtics are cooked. R.I.P. Like, I hope everybody feels better and gets new Achilles. But like, yo, this is the Knicks' time.
Yeah,
we are the hot girl at the party. We got to remember that, and we should not go home with any bum coaches.
Yeah, Malone's a winner.
He's a winner,
sorry,
man.
listeners, if you're not in the NBA, but we had to ask you. Back to New York, you wrote in you wrote an essay on your Substack about the $16 Aperol spritz, which I think you use that as a great device to talk about cost. And in the comments, there's some conversation about Bearcat.
Yeah.
and bring it back and like and an era, the early 2000s when I moved here, like you could have food for $10 that was really good, and now it's like everyone's in debt trying to eat at all these restaurants. And I'm going to link to that essay. Definitely read it because it's terrific. But expand a bit about this like idea that you got to go out to a restaurant for cultural cachet and cool, but like we're going broke doing it.
Yeah, I think one thing that like very viral, popular West Village Girls article missed was like, it's not that they're just like lemmings and followers.
No.
It's like we're coming out of this era, I would say from like 2017, 2018 till now, where like everybody wanted to absorb and adopt rich people culture. Right? Like people were seeing these vacationers on the Amalfi Coast and sponsored trips and things like that, like the Revolve Coachella. And I just came up in an era where if you were downtown, you like didn't want to go uptown or midtown. Like you didn't want to be at the 21 Club or whatever. It was like, no, we doing our thing down here. And I do feel from 2017 to 2018, there's just like so much money and investment was sloshing around. Everyone saw their opportunity to rub elbows with really rich people, endear themselves to them. A lot of cool people, whether it's like DJs, stylists, designers, I think really like hoed themselves out to people with money and joined their entourages. And the tokenization of like artful downtown people has been really like whack to watch.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna break because the downtown people and the artful working class people that have been faking it till they make it are not making it, and they don't have any more money on their credit cards to continue faking it with. So it's all gonna bust.
Yeah, I agree.
We can't afford this lifestyle. Like,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, how do we revert back to when like, I mean, fashion is your bag, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like in early 2000s, like you could wear like old clothes and it worked for the aesthetic worked. And like the aesthetic now is not that. I mean, we're talking about like stealth wealth and like paying for, I mean, this is a fashion conversation, I guess. But with food, I mean, downtown, there are no places you can go and have a $10 meal right now. How does that change? Like what, like does it change, or is it lost?
I mean, I think things just are gonna break.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think what needed to happen was the consumer needed to be responsible and set budgets and not spend. But I think it's really, really hard to do that when the rest of society is online spiraling and is like, this is the hot place to be. I gotta be here. I gotta get the flick. I need this Aperol Spritz. Like, I gotta be at the Bar Bianchi opening, you know?
I love it.
And you do it and you mortgage your future and you rack up credit card debt. But I think there's just ultimately going to be a point where like people bust out because, you know, you can't afford it.
I love that we took it there. I love that we took it there. I mean, I feel creative directors are just taking L's in all of your writing. You have to think about creative
because it's a fake job.
Expand on that.
It's a fake job. Like I'm the vibes officer, you know?
I want to ask you a little bit more about July because we talked about the Caribbean and maybe, you know, channeling Jamaica.
I'll expand on it just so people don't think I'm just salty.
Well,
to me, the creative director was the evolution of the weed carrier.
Okay.
Like the weed carrier was just the artist's homie. And like you carried the weed, you carried the gun, you got the car, you drove the car, you were security. That person in the like late 2000s became the creative director because I got ideas too. And like, I'm the one telling so-and-so to go shop at CHCM on Bond Street. I'm the one that told him to go to Four Horsemen. So I'm actually the artist. And then it was cheaper for brands to hire the weed carrier creative director. So they did. And like, it's just like, it's a Ponzi scheme with creative directors. Like, sit down with these people. Like, all their sauce is borrowed or stolen.
Yeah.
So, you know, shout out to creative director.
Yeah, shout out.
You're a hustler, though. You know, like, I respect you.
I respect it, though. If you can get into Meta or get into a DDC company as a creative director and get that monthly retainer, I respect that.
Yo, if you getting money and you figured it out and you out hustled the artist that you were carrying weed for, respect, because like you definitely broke out your Patrick Ewing knee pads and did some work.
And that's how you're gonna eat that's how you're gonna eat a Dame in Bridges. You're gonna need that creative director retainer to get into these spots.
And the creative director was like trading access to this guy. And,
oh man,
you know, like I got the guy who bought 5 Rolexes, so I can introduce you to that guy. And like, bro, the industrial complex of the creative director is type funny.
It's good.
It's like looking at a cartel, you know.
All right, back to the July menu because I don't want to miss it. I mean, and this leads to a bigger question while you're building these menus. So talk a little more about July because you wrote a very extensive kind of mood board. I mean, a lot of menu ideas. Are you building towards with this July menu with gazebos, monthly pop-ups towards like a brick and mortar?
Yeah.
I figured so. I figured this is not just you doing a fun thing. I mean, this is like you making a mission statement for the eventual restaurant that Eddie Huang will run.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
You know, my whole reason of doing the pop-up was to just get the reps in, get the idea going, get the momentum going, feed people, you know, get back involved in culture, do it at a good price, and eventually like build the team that I need to go do this permanently.
Let me ask you this. What happens when I mean, I read about, I think it was on your Substack about that screenplay you wrote when you were in Taiwan. I'm sure that movie's going to be made. So what happens when your next film gets greenlit and you have this restaurant?
You know, the thing is, I wrote that film. It's cast. It's cool. But like everyone that is cast in that film is just, it's popping right now and unavail. And I'm also taking myself off the board for a moment because like, I'm interested in food.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have the Vice movie coming out later this summer. I'm not allowed to say the date is embargoed for another like week or so.
I tried to get a little out of you, but you're embargoing.
Yeah, I'm embargoed. It's not on me. Like Mubi will announce a date, and I love Mubi, and I'm like,
oh, you're a
very
Mubi,
excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know James at Throwing Fits, you got a little out of you, so it's a good film. It sounds like it's gonna be a big film.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like I definitely think that film is going to culturally connect with people.
Yeah.
Because the kind of thesis of it is like rich people want to be cool and cool people want to be rich. And it explores how that dynamic and relationship kills culture.
Yeah.
You know?
So back to the restaurant planning, you've got real estate, you got people looking for spots. I mean, ideally, what's the timeline? What are you thinking?
Timeline would be if rents drop.
Yeah,
I'd love to lock in for like November and, you know, do a turnkey situation.
Yeah, totally.
Come
no
in,
build out. No, you just gotta go. Yeah.
No build out and just go. I feel like it's probably most likely this is like a February, March opening.
Ooh,
you know?
Ideal neighborhood. If like rent was even in a bunch of neighborhoods and you take that out of the equation, what's that? Where do you open? Because I feel like you are always ahead of it about neighborhoods. I feel like that's, you know, LA where you live in and New York. I feel like you're into interesting places. Yeah.
You know, I would say that I'm not ahead of it at all on this, but I think that there are some really great blocks that have been recently vacated and they deserve to be serviced. Like that corridor of Bleecker Street that used to have the Overthrow Gym and the Planned Parenthood. Like that is a really cool, cozy, like cave-like section of Bleecker.
Yeah.
You know, like Kith moved up the street. Everyone vacated that block.
Yeah.
That block is pretty
I think of it as the
me.
Kith block.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, it used to be. I thought of it as the Overthrow block.
Overthrow,
but like, you know, Overthrow's not there anymore. Dudes are gone.
Yeah.
I think that block is pretty cool. You know, Kenmare is interesting. Kenmare is turning over.
Yeah.
Right? Like Pasquale is out. Sweet Green is moving down. You know, that block has iconic magazines. I feel like there's an interesting thing that's about to turn over on Kenmare. Eel Bar's already got like Broome Street locked down. Dime Square is kind of cooked. Like it is what it is. It'll keep percolating, but I don't think you want to be there. The block that Despot is on with Time Again is cool.
Yeah, Time Again's good.
You know, like that's fly. Eldridge is really cool.
Is Time Again open? They're still open. Okay,
Time Again's open. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then Eldridge, where the flower shop
Yeah.
is really fly. But you know, Greenpoint's doing its thing. I don't think I'm gonna go to Brooklyn with this one. I think this is like a Manhattan thing.
I
Like
feel that.
I want people to eat and party.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a eating and a party situation.
I feel like if you opened in Brooklyn, it would feel different for you.
It feel different.
It feel different.
I'm a Lower East Side
You are.
guy. Like that's my neighborhood.
It's your neighborhood.
I like Alphabet City. Alphabet City's super fly. That area of Tompkins by B&C is cool.
See, that's what I was always thinking when you mentioned East Village earlier, that over on B&C, putting you over there would be, that would be fascinating. I mean, East Village has not, it's still like pandemic era, it feels.
Yeah.
It's
my
still,
favorite was Two Bridges. Like I really wanted to be in Two Bridges.
Yeah.
But there's no like turnkey or even like short construction real estate situation. Asa's pretty much eating it all up. He got Mr. Fong's, he got Bar Oliver.
Yeah.
But respect to Asa, you know, he's the pioneer in that neighborhood, so he locked it down. But you know, it's cool to be back doing the New York restaurant thing.
Completely.
Because it is very Gangs of New York. You see every restaurant group and how they've like managed real estate. But I think B&C is fly. I think Bleecker.
Yeah. Well, when you open, I hope to have you back and we can chat about your restaurant. Talk about the cookbook that you're not going to write.
Yeah.
Eddie, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready? The best fruit.
Soursop.
Nice. The worst vegetable.
Carrots.
Why so? Damn.
I hate carrots.
Too sweet or just nothing?
Just not nothing. Either. It's like the carrot opted out. It's not sweet. It's not bitter. It's not sour. it's just like, it's just across the board in the middle.
What's the best dessert?
Key lime pie.
Oh, stick. So is there a spin on it or is it traditional? Do you have a favorite spot that does it?
Joe Stone Crab.
Oh, yeah, right. That's a good one. Yeah. Nice choice. Your favorite American fast food chain?
Yo, I don't really eat fast food like that. I gotta say, if this was my wife, I think she'd say Raising. My wife loved fast food.
Yeah.
You know,
bless her.
She liked Raising Cane's. She liked Dunkin' Donuts. I fuck with the McDonald's on Delancey because of the shit going on in there.
Oh yeah.
Especially when off-track betting was across the street and like everyone was just doing junky shit in there. So like, I love the Delancey McDonald's.
Dude, that was like early 2000s, or that's that era of that McDonald's. That's good.
Yeah, and the guys with the megaphone from that like radical religion, like I forget which radical religion they were from, but they were always talking crazy shit out like that.
They got the clinic next door.
Yeah, the Delancey McDonald's is just like legendary, man.
I have to mention around the corner is Castillo de Agua.
Oh yeah,
you have always, and that's where I had my first date with my wife, and it's really, she lived upstairs. I love that.
That's my favorite Puerto Rican diner in the city.
It's got to go there if you haven't. Right on Rivington. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
What's his name? Harold Moore?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think it's got to be
Harold McGee.
Harold McGee.
Moore is the chef.
Harold McGee.
Listen, I do that shit all the time. I always confuse them.
It's HM something, but like that book is just unstoppable. Like I'm really into like the cooking textbooks. Like I have the CIA textbook. So yeah, I like a textbook.
Favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Taipei. If I said anything else, I'd be lying. You know, Taipei.
Two more. A cuisine you wish you could learn more about?
I'm into Basque food. I mean, I think there's a lot. It's easy to learn about it, but like, I'm into Basque food. Like, I'm late to it, but I'm into it. What else?
Just the grilling of the Basque traditions, of the grilling styles, the meat grilling up there is.
Yeah, and like, I think what drew me into it was like watching pill videos, like how they make pill sauce, and I was like, ooh, that's very ingenious. Like using the collagen from the fish and the bones.
Yeah.
I would say Spanish food, and then I'm also very interested in the food of the stands. You know, like when I visited Russia or I visited Mongolia, like the food of the stands is very interesting and like undiscovered.
That's cool. Yeah. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
I mean, I really feel it's gonna be hard to say anything but the Reuben.
Yeah.
I just really like a Reuben sandwich.
It's a good one.
I really, Just popped in my head. I would say the Zingerman's Reuben sandwich.
Oh, Ann Arbor, let's go.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah, go blue.
Go blue, baby. Eddie Huang, this has been such a pleasure. I hope you come back. Thank you so much for joining this tape.
Thank you. This is great.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanal and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.